I know. Even though we've done it before.
Mhm.
So we're on, right? Is that correct? Hello, everybody. Let's just wait like maybe 30 seconds or so, but we'll get started. Welcome. This is the information session for the BSW program. All right, so let's get started. So it looks like we have a small group, so we can keep this fairly informal, but personal, right? Not impersonal, informal but personal. But we're going to be talking a bit about the BSW program. My name is Dennis Cow. I am an associate professor with the School of Social Work, and I'm also the BSW program supervisor. And I'll let my other two co-presenters introduce themselves really quickly.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Kenny, so I'm the undergraduate administrator for the program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Adam Farhat, and I am a fourth-year Bachelor of Social Work student, as well as the co-president of the Bachelor of Social Work Student Society.
Great. And so if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to use the chat. One of us will be able to answer, or we'll also answer questions. I think we'll have a lot of time at the end. We do have an agenda, and so we'll kind of quickly go through this. But if you have any specific questions you wanted to focus on, please feel free to put it in the chat, and then we can try to prioritize that information as we go along. But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about social work, obviously, and then focus in on the BSW program. Andrew's going to step in and talk a little bit about the application process. And then finally, Adam, as a student, obviously brings in the student perspective. And then we'll have a lot of time for Q&A at the end. So please feel free to ask your questions. All right. Okay. So let's get started. So I thought it might be helpful, obviously, first to list all the key context, and I have this list at the end of the presentation as well. But it might be helpful for you to kind of get a sense of who is behind the scenes with the BSW program. I'm the undergraduate program supervisor. Andrea Kenny is the undergraduate program administrator. We're kind of in some transition, but right now Megan Stansel and Emmy Kowanagi are in charge of the Practicum program. And so if you have any specific questions, obviously, please feel free to email any of us at any point in time, and we'll try to answer your questions. So let's talk a little bit about social work, and just to kind of provide some context. I just have a couple quotes here to just get us started thinking about the BSW program and what we're trying to do at the BSW program. So obviously, social workers, I think they're nice people. Like, I think we're all nice people, and we go into the profession because I think we care about people. But I think the key thing here is that we're actually a profession. And so we're educated professionals, and that's kind of the key thing that kind of maybe distinguishes social workers from other people. There's a lot of good people out there doing really good work, But social work as a profession is very specifically, we have a very specific education and skills training that we have, and there's obviously a profession, for each, and there's a professional organization that we have to ascribe to, and things like, and standards and values and ethics. In terms of what we do, I included a definition from the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers. And I think hopefully it gives you a sense of, we do a lot of different things. You'll find social workers in a number of different settings, ranging from hospitals, clinics, mental health agencies, to community-based organizations, to policy offices, to research tanks and think tanks and things like that. And we also work at a number of different levels. But one of the things that kind of, really kind of, that we all have in common is that we have kind of the social work values and ethics, and we kind of go through our work in the same way. There's this social work process that we do, and where we engage and we assess and we collaborate with our clients. And that's something that I think all of us kind of, have in common as social workers. Like I said, we do a number of different things. And so with the BSW, there's a number of things that you can do. Obviously, it's a pathway to getting an MSW, right? But with the BSW, you can also do a number of different things. And I have a couple of things listed there, ranging from direct practice to advocacy, politics, policy, research, etc. And then, like I said, we work in a number of different settings, ranging from hospitals. And I also have a couple of colleagues who are working in corporations, doing kind of human relations and things like that. And so I think those type of positions in corporations, social workers are ideal, have the ideal skill set and experience to really fit into kind of all types of work. So why a BSW? I think obviously to gain skills and knowledge to work with diverse groups, individuals. We're a global profession, so if you're a social worker here in Ontario, you know, I think your training and experience will be equivalent to a social worker in the U.S., the social worker in Australia, to the U.K., etc. And it's a global profession that's recognized, and so that's something I think having a BSW, is kind of a key step towards that. You can become a registered social worker. So the Ontario College of Social Workers, you can officially join the profession and register with the college. And obviously, it's also a good pathway to getting an MSW. And MSW obviously is kind of the advanced kind of professional degree, and it allows you to do different things, that are different than a BSW social worker. And with a BSW, once you graduate the BSW, you actually can enter the MSW as a second-year student, and so it allows you to decrease the amount of time that you're in graduate school. It's what we call advanced placement. So you're basically, the BSW serves as that first year in your MSW program. So instead of a 2-year or 2.5-year program, it ends up being about a 1.5 year program to get your MSW. So let's talk about our program, the BSW program. So at the School of Social Work, we're committed to academic excellence, equity and social justice. And this is straight from our mission statement. And we try to prepare our students so that they can actively engage in academic, practical, professional skills, knowledge development. And the key is to become competent and accountable social workers and advocates for progressive social change. So the framework that we use, and I think Carleton is one of the only that ascribe to this specific framework, which is the structural approach to social worker. And it's the understanding that kind of our health and well-being and kind of the issues that people grapple with every day, and the challenges that people face, it's not just individual problems, but they're shaped and influenced by a number of different contexts, including economic, social, political, and etc. Right. So some highlights about our program. We're one of two programs in Ottawa. So University of Ottawa is another program, which is primarily a French-speaking program. And so I guess we're the primary English-speaking social work program here in Ottawa. And I think we're a pretty rigorous program. We're a small program, a ratio of one faculty to about every 17 students. And we have kind of a diverse faculty that are engaged in a number of different types of research. You'll notice that we have a sim social work research lab, which provides students with kind of simulated client scenarios in the classroom. And so that's something that we're very proud of here. And this is just a kind of a quick word cloud that kind of speaks to kind of the number of different things that we as faculty are working on. And you'll see kind of it's a broader range from field education to mental health to social policy to health, technology and social work, etc. All right. So very specifically, we have 307 BSW students, and you'll see that it's spread across the 4 years. The fourth years is cohort is students. We accept about 40 students. We accept 40 first year students, and then we accept 30 students as second year students, and then we also accept 30 students as third year students. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, or maybe Andrea, one of us will be talking about that more a little later. So our program is split into what the way I kind of think about it is foundation and then advanced. So the foundation is really where we're trying to kind of socialize you to the social work profession in terms of the theories, in terms of kind of just basic introduction and exposure to what social welfare and social work is, our values and ethics. You take an intro to social policy class, and you also take kind of what we call generalist or foundational practice courses. So kind of the beginnings of how to work with individuals and families, groups and communities. And there's a broad range of electives that you're allowed to take as part of being a student in Carleton, but also you have the flexibility to take electives that really fit kind of what you're interested in, right? And kind of what you want to go into and what you want to specialize in. After your foundation kind of period, you move into the advanced period. And the way I conceptualize this is where you can kind of really start to hone in on specifically what you want to kind of get into. And so in the foundation period years, you took a generalist practice course. During the advanced years, you take an advanced practice course and you kind of pick and choose which one you want. Do you want to focus on individuals and families, or do you want to focus on communities? You're also required to take a social work and indigenous peoples course. And then we have a series of what we call core electives that focus on a population. And so if you're interested in persons with disabilities or racial and ethnic minorities or poverty or gender or sexuality, and then there's a couple others, aging and immigration, that we've just included into that mix. And so you'll have a choice to kind of focus in on specific populations that you're interested in. And then finally, you have a research methods and stats course. It's also during your advanced period where you're going to be doing your practicum. And so if you're a 4-year student, if you're coming in as a first year student, you'll have 2 practicums your 3rd and 4th year. If you're coming in a little later, you'll still have your 3rd and 4th year practicums. And Andrea will talk a little bit about kind of transfer credits. So some of you might have a social service workers diploma, which means a little bit different in terms of this curriculum. But generally, this is kind of the breakdown for most students. And the practicum is kind of a key kind of signature pedagogy of social work. And the idea behind practicum is this is where you get into the field, you start working at a field agency or organization, and theoretically, this is where you're applying kind of what you're learning in class and applying it out in the field, and then taking that back and trying to integrate that into your learning, right? And so the hours have kind of fluctuated due to COVID, and we'll talk a little bit about COVID in a bit. But in addition to your practicum, like in addition of going out in the field, you also have kind of classes that where you're debriefing and talking about some of the issues that you're seeing out in the field, and that's what we call is field seminars. This is kind of a list of some of the places that some of our students have done their practicums, but there's kind of a broad range. And what you'll be doing, you'll be working with the field practicum faculty and staff to kind of get us, and you're going to be working with them as they place you in the various practicums. And ideally, eventually, your fourth year practicum is placed that where it's in a setting or working with a kind of a community or a population that you're particularly interested in. All right. So I think, Andrea, is this you now?
Yeah, I can hop on here if that helps. So hi everyone. Yes, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about our application process and what admission looks like if you're interested in exploring the social work program. So as Dennis mentioned earlier, we have a fairly small entry every year. We have about 110 new students coming in each year, and those are broken down into 3 categories. We'll have students coming straight in out of high school. We'll have about 40 of you in that category, about 40 coming in at second year. So that can be students who have either completed a college diploma or who have done a little bit of post-secondary at a university so far. And then students coming in at third year, we have about 30 of those each year. And again, those can be students who may have some combination of college or university experience, even some students who have completed an undergraduate degree already and are coming back to study social work. So it is a fairly small group coming in each year, which is really nice for helping you get to know your cohort. I think, Dennis, if the next slide has more information about the process itself. So perfect, thank you. So our application process is potentially a little more involved. So it's good to know a little bit about it in advance. We're really looking to know more about you and why you're interested in getting into social work when you're applying to the program. So the deadline you want to be keeping in mind if you're applying for next year is March 1st. First, you will be submitting the standard online application. If you've never attended Carleton in the past, that will be through the Ontario University's Application Centre, or UAC. If you are a previous Carleton student or a current Carleton student, you'll be submitting that through our internal application. We do recommend doing that part earlier than March 1st, if possible. That is basically your initial application to get you going. All of the supplementary documents are submitted after that. So putting that in early gets you all the additional documentation that you're going to want to start working on to get in for March 1st. You can put that in as early as fall if you want to kind of give yourself a really good span of time to work on your application, and then you're not kind of coming down to the wire and dealing with the stress coming up to the deadline. From there, we're looking for supplementary information. So our supplemental application is looking at what we call your human service or social change work or volunteer experience. That can involve a really wide variety of experiences. We have students who, are reporting peer mentoring or tutoring, maybe your more traditional volunteer experiences with nonprofit organizations, political advocacy, student government, clubs, camp counselor. There are a lot of experiences that can be considered here. So we really encourage you to kind of look at all the experiences in your life that you would classify as giving you some skills that might play over into the program and include those. We're also asking you 3 essay questions, and you'll prepare short kind of 500-word responses for each of those. And those are looking at kind of as you see here, how have your experiences informed how you're looking at social work and social problems and have kind of made you interested in the program? Are there any specific social problems that you're interested in, exploring how to approach them from a social work perspective? how do you kind of envision yourself playing a role in those at this point in time? And then specifically, why are you interested in attending, our School of Social Work that has that perspective of, individual experiences and problems are kind of more so a reflection of the larger society and structures in which we live. We have some kind of additional documents from there. We do ask students to include a CV or resume that will include all of your volunteer or work experiences. It doesn't just have to be human service, social change. We really want to see everything you've been working on. And you do have the option to add kind of a one-page explanatory letter if you feel there are any circumstances that might be helpful for the admissions committee to know when they're looking at your academic or experience background. And you will be asking for 2 references from people who can speak to kind of your skills and how those might play into the social work program. Ideally, those will be one person who knows you in an academic capacity and one person who knows you more in a professional capacity. If you don't have access to kind of each of those categories for whatever reason, some people have been out of school for a while, you are able to upload 2 references from kind of one of those categories, but we would really encourage you to look for both if possible so that we are seeing that kind of well-rounded picture of you as a potential student. So as I said, all of that is due March 1st. But it's really good to get started on it early. You won't be asked to submit it before you're ready to, as long as you have it in by March 1st. So you can get started on that as early as fall if you're interested in doing so. And then I will hand it over to my colleague Adam, who will take it from here.
Awesome, Andrea. Thank you so much for that. And hello, everyone. I really do like this platform, but it's unfortunate that we won't be able to see everyone's faces, especially with such a small and intimate group. That would be nice sometimes. However, I'm curious to know if the students here are sorry, if they're applying. Are we grade 11 students applying for next year potentially, or some students I'm guessing have already applied for the program for September? Feel free to share in the chat what your context is. So I, as mentioned earlier, my name is Adam Farhad, and I'm the co-president of the Bachelor of Social Work Student Society. So I am going to provide a shameless plug. If you want to know a little bit more about the Bachelor of Social Work Student Society, please feel free to follow us on Instagram. And so I have our handle just copied right there. Okay, great. Cadence, thanks so much for sharing that you applied for this September. That's awesome. Fingers crossed for you. So I'll first off by talking a little bit about why social work over psychology. So some people may have applied for both programs or may be interested in both, but not sure which one they like better. So I'll explain a little bit why I prefer social work. So first thing really is because social work is when working with clients, you with psychology, you're really focused on solely the individual, and with social work, you get a larger perspective on context that might be contributing to that individual's lives. So you understand how that individual is a product of a system, and those systems create structural inequities. And having that information in the back of your mind while working with the client, with your client, allows you to avoid stigmatizing them or blaming them for issues that are not directly caused by them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of psychotherapists out there who cause this harm. And I really appreciate what Dennis was saying earlier at the beginning of his presentation, which is that social workers are not just nice people. It's very good to be nice and be a social worker, but what we learn, through this program is that also a lot of nice people have a lot of really good intentions, and and regardless of their intentions, can cause harm, right? Can cause harm, even though they're super nice and super cheerful, right? Um, and so yeah, I see it's great that people have applied for like, fall 22. The first time that I applied, I'll be fully honest, I did not get in. And I just wanted to say that, like, because this is it is a competitive program, and I recommend that if you do not get into the program, please don't be discouraged, especially if social work is exactly what you want to do. I would, perhaps like go into, like, let's say, sociology instead, and then when you get into Carleton, go into like in your first year, apply again for the program. And I think social work is really it's important. Having that degree is really important because you become a registered social worker, as Dennis was saying, and so you're part of a regulatory body that declares that you have reached the levels of standards of training and certification to be able to do various, like, community work and things like psychotherapy as well. So even going through being a registered social worker, you are granted that privilege by the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers to practice psychotherapy as well. Whereas when you graduate directly from, like, let's say, psychology or sociology, you don't have those types of permissions just with that one degree on its own. And so yes, so I talked about learning from a structural perspective, and so even if you're interested in, like, social work, but don't necessarily think you want to be working directly with clients, like, in your future, that's not just what social work is, right? So and again, as kind of Dennis was mentioning, there are so many things that social workers do, and you can be working on various levels. So there's the micro, the meso, and the macro levels of social work. So when we're thinking of the micro levels of social work, we're really thinking of, like, that frontline work. Whether you're a case manager, whether you're providing group therapy sessions, whether it's individual therapy sessions, whether you're working to help support newcomers into the country, working with refugees, those kinds of things are frontline work. And then you have so then at the very end is the macro type of stuff, which could be working with social policy, doing advocacy work, really trying to work with the systems of power and trying to, hopefully dismantle them in some kind of way, right? Using that social work lens to critique and analyze that, and provide advice on, what are better policies that can be put in place that don't cause harm, and especially not disproportionately too. And then in between, so the micro and the macro, we got that we're in that meso area, which is all more about programming, right? So if we think of the frontline worker, providing group therapy sessions, who is developing that programming? That type of stuff would be considered in the meso level of social work. So as you can see, that there's so many different things that social workers do in our profession, and it's not just working at Children's Aid Society, right? There's much more to social work than that. And yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you all so much, and please, like, if there's more questions, like, just let us know. We'll all be happy to answer.
Thanks, Adam. And so that's it. So I'll present kind of the list of key contacts. You notice that the Linktree link is also there for the BSW Student Society, and you can get all their links, including links to their Instagram as well. So I think at this point, we can open up for any questions. I think there was maybe one question in the Q&A, but feel free to chime in with any questions and we'll answer it verbally right now. Let's see. So there was a question about what co-op opportunities are there available, and so I talked a bit about the practicums, which are a little different than co-ops. With practicums, you're actually getting course credit for the practicum, but it's essentially kind of the same. It's a way for you to get experience and field hours, obviously, as it pertains to the social work profession, and be able to register as a social worker, for example, here in Ontario. But it's, so we don't really use kind of the concept of co-ops. They're practicums, and you'll have two practicums, one in your third year and one in your fourth year, especially if you're a first year entry student. Any other questions? Let me add, like, just like I said in the chat, we are currently reviewing applications. So I know there's a couple of people who've submitted applications for fall of the entry into the fall term. So we're currently reviewing applications, and the way it works is we have faculty members who are reviewing all the applications, and we're going to come together in mid-April to make decisions based on our review over the course of this next month. And so I think you'll probably hear, Andrea, end of April-ish.
Yeah, so we kind of usually advise start watching your application accounts around mid-late April. It's good to know that we put admission offers out over the span of a couple weeks. So, if you're still not seeing a decision on it, in mid-late April, don't despair. It might still be in process. So just really wait until you see a decision in that account. But definitely, I'd say you don't need to be checking it regularly before mid-April, and then normally around then is when the first might start going
out. Let me talk a little bit also about COVID. These past 2 years have been, let me just use the word horrendous in terms of just, our program. I mean, we've pushed through, and, all of us are kind of maybe at our wits' end. That's, to a certain extent, right? So as of February 1st, we went back in person. And so we're continuing to follow kind of university guidelines, which are in turn following public health guidelines. And so I think at this point, the fall term, we're going to be back fully in person, as far as I know. And so that's the direction that we're moving, unless something else happens. But I think that's the way we're looking. So by the time that, for those of you who applied for the fall, by the time the fall comes around, well, I think we'll be back to kind of what we were like maybe pre-pandemic. Are there any other questions?
Don't be shy. If you got any questions, we're happy to help and support.
And I'll also let everyone know that we'll be in the chat booths after the presentation for about half an hour. So if you do have questions, but you'd rather chat about them one-on-one, we will also be there and are happy to talk to you there afterward.
So there's a question, Antonia, can I major in biochem as a pre-med and take courses in social work as a minor to apply in the healthcare system? Yeah, I think so. I don't see why not, right?
So social work isn't available as a minor,
Oh, it isn't.
unfortunately.
Okay.
But Dennis is right. There are a few courses that you can take, even though it's not a minor. So it's just good to know that the vast majority of our courses are restricted to social work majors. Again, kind of speaking to what Dennis and Adam were talking about earlier about us being a profession, we need to make sure that our students are getting, specific training that matches our accreditation. So that kind of limits sometimes the amount of courses we can open to students in other programs. That being said, you're very welcome to take our intro courses, Introduction to Social Welfare and Introduction to Social Work. We have a second year course on working with children and youth. And then sometimes there are a few of our upper year courses that are open to students in other programs, depending on the courses they've taken and the programs they're in. Some of our third and fourth year electives, if they have space, sometimes we can open up to other programs. So I would in no way discourage you from doing that. I think if you're looking to go pre-med, then, rounding it out with some social work information could be incredibly valuable. But it is just good to know that, a lot of courses will be limited to BSW students. And then I'll read the next one out because I think probably, Dennis, this will be a good one for you to speak to. How does the School of Social Work support / consider students who may have been personally affected by the social systems studied?
Well, that's a very that's a big question in my mind. I think we try, but I think we're continually challenged by So let me just start, kind of take a step back. I think we try to support all of our students, and we're once you get in, you're a social work student, whether you want to or not, for for good, right? You're not going to be kicked out of the program, essentially. I think what we try to do is support, as best we can, all of our students, and but given there's obviously every student's very different, and so I think and sometimes it's challenging to take a very nuanced approach to the very specific needs of every student, but I think we try. And it's a combination of the university resources. We also try, although it's limited, we have some resources at the school level to try to do that. I think it also comes down to, faculty as well. Like each faculty in their courses, I think you'll find that, there's a broad range of kind of what faculty try to do to accommodate students and support their students in trying to complete the courses. But we run up against challenges, and Adam can probably attest to this. We run up against challenges every week. I think I talk to I have conversations about how we can better support our students in some way, and so I think it's an ongoing process, I think. But yeah, I think we try, but I think we still have kind of a long ways to go, but I think we are trying.
And I would also say, kind of at the broader level, I think, yeah, Dennis is really right that the nuances of individual student situations will vary. So, we really do want to look at each student as an individual in terms of maybe any challenges they're experiencing. So we wouldn't be able to necessarily speak to those. On a really broad level, some things that the school is really focused on are focusing on diversity in recruitment and admissions, and making sure that we're really trying to work to, as much as possible, we really want our student population to be moving in the direction that it reflects the world around us. And we want to make sure that we're getting people into the program that, if you're working with vulnerable populations, it makes sense that, social workers are also reflecting, that, and can, work with their clients in ways that they understand some of the structural inequities that they've been coming up against. So, for those of you who've already applied to the program, you'll have seen that we have an educational equity statement as part of our application. so that, we have a sense of how students are coming in and identifying. There's been, a push in terms of our funding. We've been really lucky we had, a fabulous donor that helped us establish a scholarship specifically for students who are identifying as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color, and really trying to direct funding increasingly to people who might need it. And course content, the program went through a kind of an overhaul. We adjusted the program in about 2017 for a variety of reasons. But some new kind of elements came in there, including, making sure we have that core course at an upper year level in social work and Indigenous peoples, and incorporating content about reconciliation and decolonization through the courses so that students really understand more of the history of social work. And making sure that we're kind of providing advanced level courses in working within different communities are kind of things that maybe at a macro level we're all trying to do, as well as, ongoing focus on diversifying faculty and such.
I just wanted to quickly add to that. So I hope, and I'm not sure if it's Lei or Lee, but I hope that you you inputted those ways in which you've been personally affected by the social systems in your reflection, in your application. And I think, like, while there are some ways where Carleton can support, I would recommend in the program, if there's ways in which you do need support that might not be directly available to you, to have conversations with your professors, perhaps at the beginning of the semester, before assignments are due, so that way they can understand. You build that personal relationship with them, which is great, and then they can understand your needs better and can work with you to try and accommodate you so that you're able to get that support that you need. And also, it's like, some of the challenges that you will still come up with, and the education system is a big component that needs social work reform, right? And there's things in there, and with working with, like, being part of the Bachelor of Social Work Student Society, or getting involved into other clubs, are ways where you can actually have conversations with your peers about those kinds of things. And if there's something that you're not, you don't particularly like, you can work to, like, advocate on behalf of yourself and other students for change, right? So there's opportunity to do that advocacy work within the program, which will also then help prepare you for your future and your career as well.
Any other
So if
questions?
I'm not mistaken, I think we're coming up on the end of our time. I think we have 45 minutes, unfortunately, here, as much as it's lovely talking to everybody. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe if there aren't any final questions, I would just, invite you once again, if you have any questions or want to chat further about anything, please do feel free to join us in the booths afterward.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for your time, and thank you for your interest in the program. Again, feel free to contact any of us at any point in time. Andrew and I are going to be in the booth afterwards, social work booth. So feel free to drop by. I don't know, Adam, you're not going to join us, right? I think it's just Andrea and I are going to be in the booth. And so feel free to come by and drop by, meet up, let's meet. And if you have any questions, we can try to answer them in more detail in the booth. But thank you again for your interest. It was great kind of meeting you, kind of virtually kind of meeting you. And I look forward to, hopefully having you join our program in the fall.
Thank you all so much.
Everyone.
Goodbye.